Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
In the 1980s, I was the only full-time programmer of the most massively parallel processing supercomputer ever built. That is the reason to this day I am the only person that published a full-breadth lecture series on his contributions to the development of the modern supercomputer that parallel processes across processors. I am the first parallel supercomputer scientist. I did not learn how to parallel process. I invented the parallel supercomputer, and I did so by being the first person to figure out that the parallel supercomputer is 1,000,000 times faster than the vector processor that is not a member of an ensemble of vector processors. As an inventor, my dilemma was akin to that of the first person that flew an airplane. Nobody taught that first person how to fly the first airplane. The first pilot did not have a license to fly. As the first parallel supercomputer scientist, I had to have a deep understanding of my never-before-seen supercomputer. I had to understand my supercomputer, both forward and backward. My command of those computers is the reason I have given impromptu supercomputer lectures and delivered them without lecture notes. The grand challenge problem of supercomputing was not a one banana problem. This scientific problem was listed by the US government as a grand challenge, and it was described as the toughest problem in supercomputing. My grand challenge was to figure out how I could harness the potential supercomputer power of the slowest 2 raised to power 16 processors that each had its unique 16-bit long email address. That email address was also its unique binary identification number. Each processor had its own dedicated memory that shared nothing. Each processor operated its own operating system. To believe that I solved the grand challenge problem by serendipity or luck is akin to believing that 2,300 years ago, 65,536 monkeys, each on a typewriter, bashed out Euclid's The Elements, that for over 2 millennia became the all-time best-selling mathematics textbook. At first, and in the 1970s, I visualized the grand challenge problem as 64 binary 1,000 pieces of a randomly scrambled puzzle. Each piece of that supercomputing puzzle had its unique 16-bit long binary identification number, or a unique string of 16 zeros and ones that was scribbled on it. In 1989, it made the news headlines that an African supercomputer wizard in the United States has figured out how to put that puzzle together. I am that African supercomputer scientist that was in the news back in 1989. In the 1980s, my grand challenge was to put those 64 binary 1,000 pieces of parallel processing puzzles together, I figured out how to put those 65,536 pieces of parallel processing puzzles together, and how to do so in 16-dimensional hyperspace, and how to do so along 16 mutually perpendicular directions. The modern supercomputer is powered by about 1 million processors. Back in the 1980s, I was the sole full-time programmer of the most massively parallel supercomputer ever built. The reason I was the lone wolf was that I was the only person that understood the importance of the parallel supercomputer. That was the reason supercomputer scientists that won the top prize in supercomputing won it as a member of a team of up to 50 supercomputer scientists that were supported with $1 billion supercomputer. I was the only person that won that top supercomputing prize alone and won it as an outsider. The 25,000 vector processing supercomputer scientists of the 1980s abandoned parallel processing, and did so because they did not believe that parallel processing should or could power a supercomputer. Who is the father of supercomputing? The father of supercomputing should at least believe in parallel processing that is, after all, the vital technology that now underpins every supercomputer. I am called the father of the parallel supercomputer because every supercomputer parallel processes, and I am the only father of supercomputing that invented practical parallel processing.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.